Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending where you are. Welcome to week 4 of ITA511. So this week we're going to start talking about importing alcoholic beverages, beer, wine, liquor. Before we do, we want to start just a little background as to why the importations of liquor is considered an issue. Years ago, there was a thing called the Temperance League, and the Temperance League was a very powerful political and religious organization, asking us to be, moderation, self-restraint on the abstinence from drinking alcoholic liquors, and they controlled politically the way that Ontario thought about alcohol. As a matter of fact, there's even a Temperance Street downtown Toronto off of Yonge Street named after this particular league. These ladies, it was a big deal. My grandmother was one of these ladies, and she would never drink alcohol, and if she found out that I drank alcohol, she would be very disappointed. And it was quite a political power. Now, today, there's people who think that we shouldn't drink. There's certain religions where drinking alcohol is frowned upon. So alcohol is still a very, very touchy subject, but it's also a very big source of revenue for the Canadian and Ontario governments. So here's some more examples of why you shouldn't drink alcohol, etc., etc., etc. But there's an Importation of Intoxicating Liquors Act. Only certain people, certain companies, certain organizations can import alcohol. So it has to be a licensed user, a person who's allowed to import alcohol, who can import alcohol. In Ontario, that is the LCBO. And this is the store where you go to buy alcohol. And the LCBO stands for the Liquor Control Board of Ontario. So again, this comes from this old way of thinking that alcohol is across the board bad and it needs to be controlled. So you had a government agency who controlled the importation, controlled the sale, etc., etc. Other provinces have the same thing. There's one in Manitoba and there's one in Saskatchewan. So when you import liquor into Ontario, the only company that's allowed to import liquor is the LCBO. No other company can. Now there are some exceptions. A licensed distiller, a person who's making liquor or brewing beer, and they need to import the ingredients or import an alcohol that they're going to use to blend with another alcohol, they're allowed to import those items. If the distilled spirits in bulk from the United States or Mexico to be bottled here in Canada, that can be imported by the actual company, not the LCBO. Transferred from one distillery to another. So you have a company in the U.S. that has a branch here in Ontario. They're allowed to import to one another. That doesn't have to go through the LCBO. Intoxicating liquor for sacramental or medicinal purposes, and intoxicating liquor for the manufacturer, okay, of items other than as a beverage. So if you make chocolates with liquor inside, you can import the liquor to make that item. And as well, if it's imported by an embassy or a foreign government, it's allowed to be imported. It does not have to go through the LCBO. But if you and I start a company and we import some liquor or some wine, it has to be cleared through customs by the LCBO and the LCBO's customs broker before you can get your hands on it. Okay, so some examples of companies who make and import liquor: Molson's, Labatt's, Hiram Walker, Seagram's. These companies import some beer and liquor, and they also make liquor and beer here in Canada. And the thing about when you make these items in Canada, this thing called excise duty, not excise taxes. Excise taxes is what we did last week. Excise taxes are from the Excise Tax Act. Excise duties are from the Excise Act. These excise duties are applicable when you import beer or liquor or wine. They're also applicable if you manufacture those items in Canada. So when Molson makes a bottle of beer, they have to pay an excise duty even though they didn't import it. They're just making it here. So excise duty is applicable on liquor, wine, and beer made in Canada, and also applicable if the liquor, wine, and beer are imported. And obviously we're going to deal with the imported items. So excise duty on spirits. Spirits means liquor. Okay. Person who makes these items is a license, an excise licensee. So if they import liquor or they make liquor, they have to collect and pay excise duty. So if you make liquor in Canada, you have to pay excise duty. And if you import these items, you have to pay excise duty. Now the excise duty amounts are effective April 1st, 2020. If it's less than 7% absolute alcohol, we'll talk about that in a minute, it's 3.319 cents. If it's more than 7%, it's $12.61. Okay, and you'll see it's per liter of absolute ethanol alcohol, LPA. We'll talk about LPA in a few minutes. Okay, beer. Beer's the same as liquor. If it's bought, if it's made in Canada, its excise duty is applicable. If it's imported, excise duty is applicable. And depending on the strength of alcohol in the beer, the excise duty goes higher. If it's less than 1.2%, it's this amount. More than 1 but less than 2.5, and more than 2.5%, it is $33.60 per 100 liters. We're not going to be doing beer. It's too much of a variation. It's very difficult. So we'll be doing wine and liquor. Okay, wine. A vintner is a person who makes and packages beer, wine. Okay, there's some examples. If you go down to the Niagara area around Niagara Falls, you'll see lots and lots of wine vintners. You'll also see a lot on Prince Edward County, which is east of Toronto. Places around Picton, Ontario, there's lots of vineyards and vintners there who make wine. Okay. If you import wine in bulk, it isn't like, let's say you have a tanker truck full of wine, you don't need to pay excise duty at time of importation. Excise duty is paid when they put it in the bottle in Canada, and then they get charged excise duty, but we don't have to worry about that. Again, it's subject to an excise duty when it's made or when it's imported, and those are values, those are amounts. Again, goes by the amount of alcohol. 1.2 alcohol, up to no more than 1.2% alcohol, it's 2 cents, but when it goes up to more than 7%, it's up to 66.665 cents per liter. If a company's being importing liquor, wine, and beer to go to a duty-free store, then we don't have to pay excise duty on those importations either, because those goods are going to be put into the duty-free store and then sold to someone who's leaving the country. So the excise duty doesn't get charged. That's why it's duty-free, because when these items were imported into Canada, customs duty and excise duty was not paid, because those goods are going to be put into a store, and the people who buy at this store are leaving the country with the items. So that's why we don't worry about that. Okay, now let's go a little bit through some terms. Customs duty is duty imposed under the Customs Act. That's what we've been doing all along. Excise duty is duty imposed under the Excise Act. It's two different types of duty. There's customs duty and there's excise duty. Specific duty is a duty rate based upon the count instead of a percentage of the value ad valorem. And we did this when we did excise tax last week. Excise tax was a specific duty. It was on, it was a charge on each car. It was a charge on each car with an air conditioner, a flat rate. So this is a duty rate based upon the count instead of a percentage of the value. And that's what we're going to be using here, using excise duty. Okay. Now, there is a term that's important. It's called LPA, and it is a unit of a measure that we put in the unit measure field number 30 of the B3 when it comes to alcoholic beverages. Now, this is more about liquor, not so much beer and wine, but liquor. LPA is liquid volume in liters of pure alcohol. It means how much alcohol is in the liquor. So you might have a bottle of whiskey that is 12 ounces, but it doesn't have 12 ounces of liquid pure alcohol. It only has so much of that 12 ounces is liquid pure alcohol, and the rest is water. And the rest is coloring and all those other things that come into play. With liquor, whiskey, gin, vodka, etc., customs duty and excise duty is paid on the amount of LPA, not on the amount of liquor itself. So again, I have 12 ounces of whiskey. I don't pay duty, excise duty or customs duty, on the 12 ounces of liquor. I pay excise duty on the amount of liquid pure alcohol in that 12 ounces, and we have to figure that out. 2.5 liters of liquor is equal to 1 liter of pure alcohol. We're going to use that as our base. Okay, so let's give you an example. We've got 10 bottles of whiskey. Each bottle is 10 liters of whiskey. So we have 10 bottles of whiskey. Each one is 10 liters, equals 100 liters of whiskey. Now, we have to figure out the LPA inside that. How much liquid pure alcohol is inside that 100 liters of whiskey? Well, we take the 100 liters of whiskey, divide it by 2.5, and we get 40 liters of pure alcohol, or 40 LPA. That is what we get charged the specific duty on, the amount of LPA. Not on the number of the liters of whiskey, but on the LPA, the amount of liters of pure alcohol inside that liter of whiskey. That whiskey is 40 proof because 40 LPA of 40 liters of alcohol means it's 40% alcohol. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to go through and do an entry and show you how we're going to do this particular type of liquor. So we're going to do an entry for liquor. We're going to be importing some whiskey, and we're going to see how we do the customs entry B3. Then at the end of that video, you will be shown that we're going to have an assignment. If there's enough time, I'll put the assignment at the end of the video. If not, I'll have a separate video for the assignment. But you're going to be doing a liquor entry, and you're going to have lots to refer to. Okay? Talk to you soon.